The giant crystal hall filled with strange sounds as hundreds of alien beings talked to each other. Admiral Zix stood tall on his 4 legs and looked around the room with his yellow eyes. His blue skin had dark stripes that showed he was angry. The Galactic Council meeting was about to start, and he had big plans to share. Dr. Kelvin Hayes sat in a small chair at the back of the room. He was the only human in the entire building. 6 months ago, nobody in the galaxy even knew humans existed. Now he was here as Earth's first representative to watch and learn. His hands felt sweaty as he looked at all the different alien creatures around him. Some aliens looked like giant insects with too many arms. Others floated in the air like jellyfish made of light. There were robots made of living metal and creatures that looked like walking trees. Hayes had spent months learning their languages and customs, but he still felt very small and alone. Speaker Threnody floated to the center of the room. Her body was clear like glass, and lights moved inside her like a slow rainbow. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music. The Council will now hear Admiral Zix of the Velcarian Empire. He has a proposal for military action. Admiral Zix walked to the speaking area with confident steps. His 4 arms moved as he talked, and his voice was loud and strong. Great members of the Council, I bring you news of a perfect target for our next expansion. There is a small blue planet in a system they call Sol, the 3rd planet from their yellow star. Hayes felt his heart start beating faster. Zix was talking about Earth, about his home, about his family and friends, and everyone he had ever known. The beings on this world call themselves humans, Zix continued with a nasty smile. They are weak and stupid. They have no spaceships that can travel between stars. They have no energy shields to protect their cities. Their weapons are so simple they still use explosions to make metal pieces fly through the air. Many of the aliens in the room made sounds of interest. Some clicked their claws together. Others hummed or buzzed. Hayes could tell they liked what they were hearing. This planet is rich with metals and water and other things we need, Zix said as he activated a hologram that showed Earth spinning slowly in the air. The humans would make good workers once we teach them to obey. They breed quickly and they are strong enough for heavy labor. Hayes gripped the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. They were talking about enslaving humanity like they were discussing the weather. Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours. Zix laughed as he showed pictures of human cities and machines. Look at their flying machines. They burn liquid fuel and make noise like angry beasts. Their computers are as big as rooms, but have less power than our simplest tools. The Admiral pointed at images of human soldiers carrying rifles. Their armies march on the ground like insects. They know nothing of plasma weapons or force fields. A single one of our ships could destroy their largest city in seconds. Representative Quilon made a sound like grinding metal. He was part of the synthetic collective, and his body was made of silver metal that moved like water. How many humans live on this world? About 8 billion, Zix replied. More than enough workers for all our mining operations. The weak ones will die quickly, but the strong ones will serve us for many years. Hayes wanted to stand up and shout, but he knew that would only make things worse. He had to be smart about this. He had to think of a way to save his people. The planet has only one large moon, Zix continued. This makes their tides weak and their weather easy to predict. Their gravity is a bit strong, but nothing our soldiers cannot handle. There are no dangerous animals except for the humans themselves, and they fight each other more than they would fight us. Several aliens made sounds that Hayes had learned meant approval. The Council was actually considering this invasion seriously. I request permission to begin planning the attack, Zix said with confidence. My fleet can be ready to move in 6 months. The invasion will take no more than a few weeks. These humans have never seen real war technology. Speaker Threnady's lights pulsed slowly as she thought. This is a serious proposal, Admiral. The Council must discuss all aspects before making a decision. Hayes knew this was his only chance. He had to speak now, or his entire species would be doomed. He stood up from his chair and his voice carried across the huge room. "I request permission to speak." The entire council chamber went completely silent. Hundreds of alien eyes and sensors turned to look at the small human standing in the back. Nobody had ever seen anything like this before. No representative of a primitive world had ever dared to speak during a council meeting. Speaker Threnodi's lights flickered with surprise. "The human observer wishes to address the council? This has never happened before in our history." Admiral Zix made a sound like angry laughter. "Why should we listen to this primitive creature? He probably does not even understand what we are discussing." Hayes walked slowly toward the center of the room. Every step felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The future of humanity depended on what he said in the next few minutes. He had studied these aliens for months, and he knew exactly what he needed to tell them. Hayes reached the center of the crystal chamber and looked around at all the alien faces watching him. His heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears, but his voice stayed calm and steady. He had practiced this moment in his mind hundreds of times. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Hayes began, "I do not stand here to beg for mercy. I stand here to give you a warning. Admiral Zix thinks my people are weak and helpless, but he has made a terrible mistake." The Admiral's 4 arms waved in the air like he was swatting flies. "What could possibly threaten the great Valkyrian fleet? Your wooden boats? Your metal bullets?" Hayes smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "No, Admiral. Our creativity, our ability to change, and our refusal to give up. You see, humanity has spent every day of our existence fighting, not just each other, but our own planet. We have lived through ice ages that lasted thousands of years. We have survived when giant rocks from space hit our world and blocked out the sun. We have beaten diseases that killed millions and kept going when volcanoes covered the sky with ash." Representative Quilon leaned forward, and his metal body made soft musical sounds. "Tell us more about this, human." Hayes raised his hand, and a hologram appeared in the air showing planet Earth. "Our world is what you would call a death world. The gravity is stronger than most planets where intelligent life grows. Our weather creates storms that could flatten your cities, winds that move faster than your ground vehicles, water that falls from the sky in chunks of ice bigger than your head." The hologram showed hurricanes spinning over oceans, tornadoes tearing across land, and lightning splitting the sky. Several of the smaller aliens moved back in their seats. "We share our world with creatures that hunt us for food," Hayes continued, as images of sharks, bears, lions, and crocodiles appeared. "Animals with teeth longer than my fingers and strength enough to break our bones, snakes whose bite can kill us in minutes, spiders whose poison makes us die in agony. Yet we not only survived, we became the masters of our world." Commander Luna, of the Terran Defense Coalition, made a low growling sound. She looked like a giant lizard covered in scars from old battles. "These creatures you show, they still live on your world?" "Yes," Hayes replied, "and we hunt them back. We have turned every dangerous animal on our planet into our food or our tools. We have climbed the highest mountains where the air is too thin to breathe. We have gone to the deepest parts of our oceans where the pressure would crush most of your bodies like paper." The images changed to show humans climbing mountains, diving in deep water, and exploring dangerous places. But more important than all of this, we have never known peace. In all of our recorded history, there have been less than 300 years when there was no war happening somewhere on our planet. Admiral Zix made his laughing sound again. "Fighting with sticks and stones means nothing against plasma cannons and starships." Hayes looked directly at the Admiral, and his eyes were hard as stone. "We went from our first flying machine to walking on our moon in 66 years. We learned to split atoms 40 years after we discovered them. When we decide something must be done, we do it faster than you think possible." The hologram now showed the Wright brothers' first flight, then rockets launching, then Neil Armstrong stepping onto the lunar surface. We built weapons that could destroy our entire world and pointed them at ourselves to keep peace. What kind of species builds doomsday weapons as a negotiation tool? Dr. Zerion of the Science Consortium made sounds like breaking glass. His crystal body flashed with different colors as he spoke. This is madness. No rational species would risk destroying their own world. Rational? Hayes laughed, and the sound was not pleasant. Admiral Zix called us primitive, but we have something you advanced species seem to have lost. We have desperation. We have the willingness to do anything, sacrifice anything, destroy anything rather than be slaves. He gestured, and the hologram showed scenes from human wars, soldiers charging across battlefields through explosions and gunfire, cities burning while people fought in the streets. We have a saying on Earth, freedom or death. We mean that literally. During our Second World War, one of our nations lost 27 million people but never surrendered. Hayes continued as images of destroyed cities and mass graves filled the air. When enemies took their land, they burned their own crops. Rather than feed their conquerors, they destroyed their own bridges and roads rather than let them be used against them. The council chamber was completely quiet now. Even Admiral Zix had stopped making his mocking sounds. We have another saying, Hayes said softly. If you want peace, prepare for war. Every human nation spends enormous amounts of money and resources, preparing to fight. We study war like you study science. We practice killing like you practice art. Representative Milos of the peaceful hegemony spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. Surely not all humans are warriors. Hayes shook his head. Every human is trained from childhood to compete. In sports, in school, in business, in everything we do. We are never satisfied with good enough. We always want to be better, faster, stronger, smarter than everyone else. Competition is in our blood. The hologram showed human athletes pushing their bodies to the limit, scientists working day and night in laboratories, and engineers building impossible machines. We send our young people to schools where they learn mathematics and literature and history, but they also learn to think tactically, to solve problems under pressure, to never give up even when they are losing. Admiral Zix thinks he knows what he would be fighting, Hayes said, as he turned to look at the alien commander. He thinks he would face our current armies with our current weapons. But if you start preparing to invade Earth, we will know about it. Your fleets will take months to reach us. During that time, every human nation will stop fighting each other and unite against you. Hayes paused and let that sink in. Every scientist, every engineer, every inventor will work together for the first time in our history. Every factory will build weapons. Every school will become a military academy. Every human being will become a soldier. The hologram showed images of Earth's industrial capacity, its millions of factories and laboratories and universities. You will not be fighting the humanity of today. You will be fighting the humanity that emerges when 8 billion desperate, creative, competitive people are given months to prepare for the fight of their lives. Admiral Zix finally spoke, and his voice was not as confident as before. You speak of impossible things. No species can advance their technology that quickly. Hayes smiled, and this time there was something dangerous in it. Admiral, we have a saying about that too. Necessity is the mother of invention. You would be giving us the greatest necessity our species has ever known. After Hayes finished speaking, Speaker Threnodi's lights pulsed in deep purple patterns that meant serious thought. The entire council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of aliens began talking to each other in their different languages. Hayes walked back to his observer seat, but he could feel every eye in the room watching him. The council will now deliberate on Admiral Zix's proposal, Speaker Threnody announced. All members may speak their thoughts before we vote. Representative Milos floated gracefully to the speaking area. His tall, thin body was almost transparent and moved like smoke in the wind. When he spoke, his voice sounded like a gentle breeze. The human has raised concerns that we cannot ignore. Perhaps we should think more carefully about this invasion. Admiral Zix slammed his 4 fists on the metal railing in front of him. The loud crash echoed through the crystal chamber. This is fear talking, not wisdom. They have no space fleet, no orbital defenses, no energy weapons. What could they possibly do against proper military technology? Commander Luna stood up slowly, and her scarred reptilian face looked grim. She had fought in more battles than anyone else in the council, and her opinion carried great weight. Admiral, I have studied the military histories of hundreds of worlds before they joined our civilization. Never have I seen documentation like what the humans have created. She activated her own holographic display, and images began appearing in the air above the council floor. They have written millions of books about warfare. They study every battle, every strategy, every victory and defeat. They learn from each other's mistakes and build on each other's successes. The images showed ancient human battles with swords and shields, then cannons and muskets, then tanks and airplanes, then guided missiles and satellite surveillance. Look at how quickly their warfare evolved. In just a few hundred years, they went from fighting with metal blades to weapons that can strike targets on the other side of their planet. Dr. Zarion's crystal body chimed like broken bells as he spoke. Most disturbing is their concept of total war. They understand that in a fight for survival, there are no rules, no civilians, no sacred places. Everything becomes a weapon. The hologram changed to show images from human conflicts that made many council members turn away. Cities reduced to rubble, factories converted to weapon production, children learning to make explosives. They have a saying, all is fair in love and war. They mean this literally. Representative Quilon's metal body shifted and reshaped itself as he processed the information. The economic implications are also troubling. The humans suggested that their entire population would become military assets. No species in our records has ever achieved such total mobilization. Admiral Zix's yellow eyes glowed brighter with anger. You are all being deceived by clever words. I have conquered 17 worlds for the Empire. Primitive species always make threats when they are afraid. None of them have ever been able to resist superior technology. General Korth of the Warrior. Clans clicked his massive mandibles together in disagreement. His insect-like body was covered in battle scars, and everyone knew he was the greatest military mind in the galaxy. Admiral, you have fought against conventional armies with conventional tactics. These humans fight differently. The general activated his own display showing examples from human military history. When their armies are defeated, they do not surrender. They become something else. They call them partisans, guerrillas, resistance fighters. Every human becomes a potential saboteur. Images flashed showing humans hiding in forests and mountains, making bombs in basements, passing secret messages, and attacking supply lines. During their World War II, the human nation called France was completely conquered by Germany. Their army was destroyed, their government surrendered, their capital city was occupied. The hologram showed German tanks rolling through Paris, while French soldiers threw down their weapons. Any normal species would have accepted defeat, but the French humans kept fighting. Old men and young women, teachers and farmers, even children, helped attack the occupying army. More images appeared showing French resistance fighters sabotaging trains, assassinating German officers, and helping Allied soldiers escape. They had no heavy weapons, no air support, no proper military equipment. They fought with hunting rifles and homemade explosives and kitchen knives. They turned their entire country into a battlefield. Commander Luna nodded her scarred head in agreement. The same pattern appears throughout their history. The Afghan humans fought the British Empire, then the Soviet Union, then the United States. Each time, the invading army had better weapons, better training, and more soldiers. Each time, the Afghans eventually won through sheer stubborn resistance. Speaker Threnodi's lights shifted to worried yellow patterns. Are you suggesting that conquering Earth would be impossible? General Korth made a sound like grinding stone. I am suggesting that conquering Earth would be easy. Holding Earth would be impossible. Every day of occupation would cost more resources than the planet could ever provide. Dr. Zarion chimed in with harmonics that hurt to hear. There is another factor we must consider. The humans' claim about rapid technological advancement is supported by their historical data. When they focus their entire civilization on a single goal, they achieve results that should take decades. The crystal being projected images of human technological leaps during wartime. During their First World War, they invented new weapons, new medicines, and new manufacturing techniques in just 4 years. During their Second World War, they developed atomic weapons, jet engines, rockets, and computers. Their Cold War drove them to build thousands of nuclear weapons and put humans on their moon, Dr. Zarion continued. All of this happened because they were competing with each other. Imagine what they could accomplish if they were all working together against an external threat. Representative Milos drifted closer to the center of the chamber. The human mentioned something else that troubles me. He said they would rather destroy everything than be enslaved. What if they decided to render their planet uninhabitable rather than let us take it? The chamber fell silent as this possibility sank in. Several aliens made sounds of horror at the thought. Admiral Zix's confident demeanor was starting to crack. No rational species would destroy their own world. They are bluffing to make us afraid. Hayes stood up in his observer section, and his voice carried clearly through the chamber. Admiral, we have thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at our own cities right now. We call it deterrence. We are perfectly willing to destroy ourselves if it means denying victory to our enemies. The humans' words sent a chill through the council. They were beginning to understand that they were not dealing with a normal species. These humans were something new and dangerous, something that did not fit into any of their previous experience. Speaker Threnodi's lights pulsed faster as she tried to process all the information. The debate was far from over, but already the mood in the chamber had changed. What had seemed like an easy conquest was beginning to look like a potential disaster. Speaker Threnodi's rainbow lights swirled faster as she considered everything the council had heard. Her voice echoed through the crystal chamber like distant music. Before we continue, perhaps we should examine specific examples from galactic history. Has any council member encountered similar resistance patterns in their military campaigns? General Korth rose to his full height, his massive insect body casting shadows across the floor. His compound eyes reflected the chamber's light like 1,000 tiny mirrors. I led the pacification of the rebellion worlds 300 years ago. The resistance was fierce and cost us many ships and soldiers. The general activated a holographic display that showed space battles and planetary invasions. But ultimately we succeeded because they fought like civilized beings. They had armies with uniforms and ranks. They held territory and built bases. They followed rules of war and protected civilians. We could predict their tactics and counter their strategies. Admiral Zix nodded eagerly, his forearms gesturing with renewed confidence. Exactly my point. Conventional resistance can always be overcome with superior firepower and better tactics. General Korth's mandibles clicked together in a sound that meant disagreement. But these humans are not conventional, Admiral. Their history shows they excel at what they call asymmetrical warfare. When their organized armies are destroyed, they do not accept defeat. They transform their entire population into weapons. The hologram changed to show scenes from Earth's conflicts that made several council members recoil in horror. During their Second World War, the Russian humans lost 27 million citizens. 27 million. That is more than the total population of most civilized worlds. Yet they never surrendered. Images flashed, showing the siege of Stalingrad, the Battle of Leningrad, and the scorched earth tactics of the Russian retreat. When German forces invaded their territory, the Russians burned their own crops rather than feed their enemies. They destroyed their own factories rather than let them produce weapons for the Germans. They flooded their own mines rather than provide resources to the invaders. Representative Quilon's metal body rippled with concern. They destroyed their own infrastructure? That makes no economic sense. It makes perfect sense if your goal is victory at any cost, General Korth replied grimly. The Russians understood, something that we civilized species have forgotten. Sometimes losing everything is better than losing your freedom. The general gestured and more images appeared showing Russian partisans operating behind German lines. But they did not stop with destroying their own resources. Every farmer became a spy. Every mechanic became a saboteur. Every grandmother became an intelligence agent. The hologram showed elderly Russian women passing messages to resistance fighters, teenage boys planting explosives on railroad tracks, and ordinary citizens helping downed pilots escape. They turned their entire society into a military organization without uniforms or rank structure. Commander Luna growled low in her throat as she studied the images. This explains why occupation would be impossible. You cannot identify combatants when everyone is a potential combatant. Dr. Zarion's crystal form chimed with alarm. The medical records from these conflicts are disturbing. The humans continued fighting even when wounded, starving, or sick. Their pain tolerance and psychological resilience exceed all known parameters for intelligent species. New images appeared showing wounded soldiers refusing medical evacuation, civilians sharing their last food with resistance fighters, and humans fighting with makeshift weapons while suffering from diseases and malnutrition. They have a concept they call duty that overrides normal survival instincts. Admiral Zix watched the displays with growing unease, but tried to maintain his confident tone. These are isolated examples from one conflict. Surely not all human cultures behave this way. General Korth's laugh sounded like breaking glass. Admiral, this pattern appears in every human conflict across all their cultures and time periods. Let me show you their Vietnam War. The hologram shifted to show American forces in Southeast Asian jungles. The United States military had better weapons, better training, better equipment, and overwhelming numerical superiority. They could win every conventional battle against the Vietnamese forces. Images of helicopter gunships, bombing raids, and advanced military technology filled the air. Yet after years of fighting, the Americans withdrew in defeat. How did a small agricultural nation defeat the most powerful military on their planet? The display showed Vietnamese fighters hiding in tunnel systems, laying booby traps, and using the jungle itself as a weapon. The Vietnamese understood that they did not need to win battles. They only needed to make the cost of occupation higher than the benefits of conquest. They used children as scouts, grandmothers as bomb makers, and farmers as intelligence agents. General Korth continued. Every village became a fortress. Every field became a battlefield. The Americans could destroy any target they wanted, but they could never identify all their enemies. Representative Milos floated closer to examine the images. The psychological warfare aspect is particularly troubling. They attacked not just military targets, but the enemy's will to fight. The hologram showed Vietnamese propaganda efforts, prisoner of war camps, and media coverage that turned American public opinion against the war. They understood that winning the war required defeating not just the soldiers, but the entire society that sent those soldiers. Commander Luna nodded her scarred head in appreciation. This is sophisticated strategic thinking. They treated the HFY war as a long-term political problem rather than a short-term military problem. General Korth activated another set of images showing more recent human conflicts. The pattern continues in their more recent wars. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, they faced similar resistance. When the United States invaded Afghanistan, they encountered the same tactics. The display showed Afghan fighters using ancient weapons and modern technology together, hiding in mountain caves and adapting to each new weapon their enemies introduced. The Afghans have defeated 3 major powers in the last 2 centuries using these methods. Dr. Zarion's harmonics rose to a painful frequency. The economic data from these conflicts supports the military analysis. Occupying forces consistently spent more resources than they gained from the conquered territories. Charts and graphs appeared showing the enormous costs of maintaining military forces in hostile territory. The humans have calculated that resistance warfare changes the economic equation of conquest. Even if invasion succeeds, occupation becomes financially impossible. Speaker Threnity's lights dimmed to worried purple as she processed this information. Are you suggesting that humans have developed warfare into a science? General Korth made clicking sounds that indicated grim amusement. Not developed, Speaker. Perfected. They have been refining these techniques for thousands of years. Every failure taught them new methods. Every victory showed them what worked. The hologram now showed human military academies where officers studied historical battles, think tanks where strategists developed new theories, and war games where soldiers practiced impossible scenarios. They do not just learn from their own experience. They study every conflict in their history and incorporate the lessons into their training. Admiral Zix's yellow eyes had lost their confident glow. His forearms hung limply at his sides as he watched the evidence accumulate against his invasion plan. This cannot be accurate. No species is this thoroughly militarized. Hayes stood up in his observer section and spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. Admiral, we have a saying on Earth. If you want peace, prepare for war. We have, been preparing for war for our entire recorded history. The human's calm voice cut through the noise of alien discussions. Every human child learns the history of warfare as part of their basic education. Every human adult understands that freedom must be defended with blood. We do not see this as unusual or wrong. We see it as necessary for survival. The council. Chamber fell completely silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. They were not just considering the invasion of a primitive world. They were contemplating war against a species that had turned warfare itself into their primary cultural achievement. Speaker Threnity's lights pulsed with uncertainty as she looked around the chamber. The debate had been going on for hours, and the council members were clearly divided. Some still supported Admiral Zix's invasion plan, while others were beginning to have serious doubts. Before we proceed to a final vote, Speaker Threnity announced, I believe we should address the humans' claims about technological advancement. Dr. Zarion, you have studied their scientific progress. What is your assessment? The crystal being rose from his seat and his body flashed with complex light patterns that hurt to look at directly. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass mixed with music. Honored council members, the humans' claims are not exaggerated. Their rate of technological advancement is unprecedented in galactic history. Dr. Zarion activated a holographic timeline that stretched across the entire chamber. It showed human technological progress from their discovery of fire to their current space age. Most species require thousands of years to develop from basic agriculture to interplanetary travel. Humans accomplished this in less than 10,000 years. Admiral Zix's forearms waved dismissively. So they developed quickly in the past. That does not mean they can compete with galactic technology. Hayes stood up in his observer section and raised his hand. May I address the council's concerns about our technological capabilities? Speaker Threnity's lights flickered with curiosity. The human may speak. Hayes walked to the center of the chamber with steady steps. He had been learning to use the council's holographic systems during his months as a diplomatic observer. With practiced movements, he activated the display controls. Dr. Zarion is correct that we have developed rapidly in the past, Hayes began as images of human scientists and engineers appeared in the air. But what you need to understand is how we approach technological problems when our survival depends on solving them. The hologram showed the Manhattan Project, the massive secret effort to build atomic weapons during World War II. When we discovered that our enemies might be developing nuclear weapons, we mobilized our entire scientific community. In less than 4 years, starting from basic theoretical knowledge, we built and tested the most powerful weapons in our history. Images flashed showing the laboratories, factories, and test sites that had been built across America. We employed over 100,000 people on this project. We built entire cities in secret. We spent more money than most countries had ever seen. Dr. Zarion's harmonics shifted to amazement. The scale of resource allocation is impressive, but surely this was an exceptional case. Hayes smiled grimly. Not at all. When the Soviet Union launched the first artificial satellite, Americans panicked. We thought we were losing the space race, so we decided to put humans on the moon before the Soviets could. The hologram changed to show the Apollo program with its massive rockets, complex spacecraft, and thousands of engineers working around the clock. We went from having no space program to landing on Luna in 11 years. We built the most complex machines in our history and sent them to another world. Representative Quilon's metal body hummed with interest. The computational requirements alone must have been enormous. We invented the computers we needed, Hayes replied as images of early NASA computers filled the display. Room-sized machines that could barely add numbers became sophisticated navigation systems in less than a decade. When we needed better materials, we invented them. When we needed new manufacturing techniques, we created them. Commander Luna leaned forward with her scarred reptilian face showing interest. You speak of past achievements. What about current capabilities? Hayes gestured, and the hologram showed modern human laboratories and research facilities. 6 months ago, when we first detected your communication signals, we immediately began reverse engineering the technology. Our scientists have been working day and night to understand your faster-than-light communication systems. The display showed human engineers taking apart alien communication devices and scientists drawing complex equations on whiteboards. We may not have star travel yet, but we understand the principles now. Our best estimates suggest we could have a working prototype within 2 years if we dedicate our full resources to the project. Dr. Zarion's crystal body flashed with alarm. 2 years? That is impossible. Most species require decades to develop faster-than-light technology, even with assistance. Most species have not spent their entire existence in a state of competitive technological advancement, Hayes countered. We call it an arms race. Every major breakthrough in our history has been driven by the need to outpace our enemies or survive in our hostile environment. The hologram showed a rapid succession of human inventions. Gunpowder, printing presses, steam engines, electricity, radio, television, computers, and the internet. We went from horse-drawn carriages to jet aircraft in 50 years, from room-sized computers to devices that fit in our pockets in 30 years, from understanding DNA to genetic engineering in 70 years. Hayes paused and looked directly at Admiral Zix. More importantly, we have something that your advanced civilization seems to have lost: the willingness to take extreme risks for rapid advancement. Images appeared showing human test pilots flying experimental aircraft, volunteers participating in dangerous medical trials, and explorers venturing into unknown territories with inadequate equipment. We test experimental aircraft with human pilots inside them. We volunteer for medical experiments that might kill us. We explore dangerous environments because waiting for perfect safety would mean missing opportunities. Commander Luna growled approvingly. Risk-taking behavior can accelerate development, but it also increases casualties. We accept casualties as the price of progress, Hayes replied without emotion. During our space program, we lost astronauts in explosions and accidents. We mourned them and then continued the program with improved designs. Failure teaches us faster than success. The hologram showed the Apollo 1 fire, the Challenger explosion, and other space disasters, followed by images of improved spacecraft and safety systems. Every failure made us stronger because we learned from our mistakes and tried again. Admiral Zix was growing more agitated as he watched the displays. You speak as if you could match our technology given enough time, but my invasion fleet would give you no time to prepare. Hayes turned to face the Admiral directly, and his eyes were hard as steel. Admiral, you assumed that we would face you? With the technology we have today. But if you begin your invasion preparations now, we will detect them. Your fleets will take months to reach Earth. During that time, every human nation will unite against the common threat. The hologram changed to show Earth's industrial capacity. Millions of factories, thousands of research laboratories, hundreds of universities, and billions of workers. Every scientist, every engineer, every inventor will work together for the first time in our history. Every factory will be converted to military production. Every university will become a weapons research facility. You would not be fighting the humanity of today, Hayes continued as images of rapid military production filled the display. You would be fighting the humanity that emerges when 8 billion desperate, creative, competitive people are given months to prepare for the most important battle in our species' history. Dr. Xarion made sounds like shattering crystal. The resource mobilization you describe would require unprecedented international cooperation. Hayes laughed, and the sound was not pleasant. Doctor, the only thing that has ever united humanity completely is an external threat. We stop fighting each other when something threatens all of us. You would be providing us with the greatest unifying force in our history. The hologram showed examples of human cooperation during crises, international medical responses to pandemics, disaster relief efforts, and scientific collaborations. When we work together instead of against each other, we can accomplish things that seem impossible. Speaker Threnodi's lights pulsed with growing concern. You paint a disturbing picture of rapid militarization. Hayes nodded grimly. We have a saying, Speaker. Necessity is the mother of invention. You would be providing us with the greatest necessity our species has ever known, the need to survive. The great crystal chamber fell silent as Hayes finished speaking and returned to his observer seat. The weight of his words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to break. Speaker Threnodi's lights shifted through complex patterns as she processed everything the council had heard during the long debate. The evidence presented today has been extensive and troubling, Speaker Threnody announced, her musical voice echoing through the chamber. Before we proceed to a final vote on Admiral Zix's invasion proposal, I will hear final statements from our military leadership. Commander Luna rose slowly from her seat, her scarred reptilian form moving with the careful grace of a veteran warrior. She had remained mostly silent during the later parts of the debate, but her reputation as the galaxy's foremost military strategist made her opinion crucial. Honored council members, Luna began in her deep, gravelly voice, I have studied warfare across hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. In my professional judgment, the proposed invasion of Earth represents an unacceptable strategic risk. Admiral Zix's yellow eyes flared with anger. Commander, you cannot seriously believe that primitives could threaten a galactic military force. Luna turned to face the Admiral, and her battle-scarred face showed no emotion. Admiral, I have commanded forces in 17 major campaigns. I have seen civilizations fall and worlds conquered, but I have never encountered a species with the psychological profile that humans display. She activated her tactical display, and images of human military doctrine filled the air. Their capacity for rapid technological advancement is concerning, but more troubling is their psychological response to existential threats. The humans' own words confirm what their history suggests. They view invasion not as conquest but as genocide. The holographic display showed examples of human resistance movements throughout history. A species that believes it faces extinction will respond with desperation and creativity that cannot be predicted or contained. They will not limit themselves to conventional tactics or civilized rules of engagement. Dr. Xarion's crystal form chimed in agreement. The technological implications support Commander Luna's assessment. Their historical pattern shows exponential advancement during crisis periods. 6 months of preparation time could result in weapon systems we have not anticipated. Representative Quilon's metal body shifted as he processed the data. The economic analysis also supports caution. Based on their resistance patterns, occupation costs would exceed any possible resource gains from the planet. Admiral Zix slammed, his 4 fists against his console in frustration. This is madness. We are the most advanced military force in the galaxy. No primitive species has ever successfully resisted galactic civilization. General Korth's massive insect form clicked, his mandibles in disagreement. Admiral, in my experience commanding the warrior clans, the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the strongest weapons, but the one with nothing left to lose. The general activated his own display showing tactical analyses from human conflicts. These humans have documented strategies for fighting superior forces that go beyond anything in our military databases. They understand psychological warfare, economic disruption, and guerrilla tactics at a level that suggests centuries of refinement. Hayes watched from his observer seat as the debate continued, feeling a mixture of hope and dread. The Council was clearly reconsidering the invasion, but he knew that Admiral Zix still had supporters among the more aggressive species. Representative Milos floated to the speaking area, his ethereal form glowing with gentle light. I propose we consider an alternative to military action. Rather than conquest, why not establish trade relations and cultural exchange? The humans' creativity and problem-solving abilities could benefit all council members if channeled through cooperation. Several smaller alien species made sounds of agreement. They had been quiet during most of the debate, but the prospect of peaceful contact seemed to appeal to them. Admiral Zix's frustration was reaching dangerous levels. His blue skin had turned dark purple and his 4 arms trembled with rage. You are all being deceived by clever words and frightening stories. These humans have no space fleet, no energy weapons, no orbital defenses. One carrier group could destroy their largest cities in hours. Commander Luna stood again, and her voice cut through the Admiral's protests like a blade. Admiral, you are thinking like a conqueror, not a strategist. Yes, we could destroy their cities and kill millions of them. But then what? The survivors would scatter across their planet and begin the longest, bloodiest guerrilla war in galactic history. The chamber erupted in discussions as council members debated among themselves in dozens of different languages. The noise grew so loud that Speaker Threnody had to pulse her lights in bright warning patterns to restore order. The council will now vote, she announced when quiet returned. All those in favor of Admiral Zix's proposal to invade Earth indicate your support now. Hayes held his breath as voting indicators appeared around the chamber. Slowly, lights began appearing as council members registered their decisions. The Velcarian Empire's allies voted in favor, along with several of the more militaristic species, but the total was far less than Admiral Zix had expected. All those opposed to the invasion proposal, Speaker Threnody continued. More lights appeared across the chamber as the majority of council members voted against the military action. The peaceful species, the trade-focused civilizations, and most of the scientific community opposed the invasion. Speaker Threnody's lights flashed in complex patterns as she calculated the results. The vote is decisive. The Galactic Council rejects Admiral Zix's proposal to invade Earth by a margin of nearly 2-1. The chamber erupted in noise again as supporters and opponents of the invasion reacted to the decision. Admiral Zix stood rigid in his position, his 4 arms clenched into fists and his yellow eyes burning with fury. This is a mistake that will cost us all, the Admiral declared, his voice carrying over the noise. These humans will bring chaos and war to our peaceful galaxy. Mark my words, we will regret this decision. Speaker Threnody pulsed for attention, and the chamber gradually quieted. The council has made its decision. Rather than military action, I propose we establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth and offer humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Council. This suggestion caused another wave of discussion, but the mood was more positive now. Many council members seemed relieved that the crisis had been resolved without violence. Hayes felt his legs go weak with relief and had to grip his chair to keep from falling. He had done it. Against all odds, he had convinced the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy that humanity was too dangerous to conquer. Representative Milos approached Hayes' observer section with his gentle, floating movements. Human Hayes, your species, has shown remarkable diplomatic skill today. I believe this is the beginning of a beneficial relationship between Earth and the galactic community. Hayes managed a tired smile. I hope so, Representative. But I want to be clear about something. Everything I told the Council about human nature was not a threat. It was a promise. Dr. Zarion chimed with what Hayes had learned was curiosity. What do you mean, human? Hayes looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching him. I mean that if anyone ever does decide to invade Earth, they will discover that I was not exaggerating. We really are as dangerous, as creative, and as stubborn as I claimed. Commander Luna made a sound that might have been laughter. Human, I believe that is the most effective diplomatic threat I have ever heard. You convinced us to make peace by explaining why war would be a disaster. As the council session concluded and the various alien delegations began filing out of the chamber, Hayes reflected on the strange irony of the situation. Humanity had avoided invasion not by begging for mercy or promising to be good slaves, but by convincing their potential conquerors that they were simply too much trouble to be worth the effort. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had talked their way out of conquest by making their enemies afraid of them. It was, Hayes thought, a very human solution to an impossible problem. As he prepared to return to Earth with news of humanity's reprieve, Hayes wondered what the galaxy would think when they discovered that everything he had told them about human determination and creativity was not just history, but a preview of things to come.